Welcome back to Observing the Sabbath. I am your host, Nathaniel Molnar. I'm joined once again by Johnny Gifford. Johnny, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Nathaniel. I can't express how grateful I am for being on the show.
Well, I cannot express how grateful I am for you joining us. So, this is our third installment in Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. We have discussed Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. We've done a national acrobat, and now we're doing the instrumental Fluff. Which I don't even want to say too much about the song before we listen to it. But this is a very interesting song. So let's just get right into it. Let's not waste any more time. Let's just listen to Fluff. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm excited to do this one.
All right. And now. I love the tone. Very stark contrast to Sabbath Bloody Sabbath and a national acrobat.
Very radio friendly, especially for the time compared to a lot of their other songs.
Yeah. So what are you, as you're listening to this, what are you kind of hearing?
I'm hearing, this is funny, I guess I'm feeling like more emotion, from an emotional standpoint. I'm seeing like a sunrise. I'm seeing something really nice, which is funny because it's similar to their other song, Laguna Sunrise.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives that same emotion, that sort of Sunday morning, like feeling at peace kind of thing. I guess sonically, let me turn my volume up a little bit. I'm just hearing layers upon layers of clean acoustic guitars, which are rather like, they have that nice sharp attack, but are rather sine wave-like, not very gritty. Those smooth tones and waves. You get that really wet reverb guitar in the background just there, which is really complementing a lot of the riffs. You hear one guitar, the acoustic, play a short riff, it stops, then that guitar comes in, the reverb one, with another riff to respond to it. Kind of call and response like you have in jazz.
Yeah.
But just really peaceful. It's very peaceful.
Yeah.
And I like music a lot that makes me feel good or just elicits this emotion out of me without even having to say anything. And this track does a good job at that. Absolutely.
Very well put. I love this part right here. Like that kind of sound to it.
Yeah, those guitars are coming in together. They're playing, instead of different stuff layering on top of each other, more homophonically, more multiple things coming together to really reinforce this one idea, this one motif, which really just strengthens it, I think.
The comparison you made to Laguna Sunrise, I think, was very apt. It sounds like similar, but it's not like they're not kind of impeding on each other,
Definitely not. No.
Like they're very distinct, but they kind of sound like they're within the same family. But yeah, I definitely get like the idea of like a sunrise of some sort while I'm listening to this. And it's a beautiful piece of music. And it's something that I just love so much about Sabbath, is that they can do something like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, which is twisted and sinister and has these like really dark tones to it. And then they could just do something like this, which like you would just imagine like looking at a field and seeing flowers grow, and there's just so much difference between them.
And they're just bridging the gaps between songs on their album so well too, and it's not just filler at all.
Yeah,
each song has its own purpose in this album.
Even though it is called Fluff, it's not filler, which is great.
It's called Fluff because of the radio host though. DJ Alan Fluff Freeman, one of the few people to play Sabbath on radio at the time.
Yeah. I was trying to remember. I knew there was another reason too, because initially when I first heard the title, I was like, "Oh, well, they're kind of doing like a nod to the audience because it's like fluff, like just like a little fluff part
fluff
for the
piece.
album." Yeah. But no, there's also that connection to it as well, which is very good to point out. But yeah, no, it's just a nice piece of the album. It just kind of helps I talk a lot about that they're these sort of shorter transitionary songs on each of their albums. Like Volume 4 has Tomorrow's Dream and Cornucopia, which just kind of feel like they're not necessarily they're more helping to kind of take you from one part of the album to the next. And you don't necessarily have that on the other albums with instrumentals, but I think this is one of those songs where it's just kind of taking you from one part of the album to the next.
Absolutely, yeah. We're just going on a nice trip, a nice ride with them. And there's no one else I'd rather be taking a ride with than Black Sabbath. Just a nice drive with the windows down and a nice flowery field kind of thing, you know.
Absolutely. And one other thing that I really like about their instrumentals, we were kind of talking before about the whole thing with their albums of having strong producerial elements as well as what they play live. Something I really like about a lot of their instrumentals is that they do stuff with the instrumentals that they wouldn't necessarily be able to do live. Like, you wouldn't necessarily be able to have Fluff to its fullest capacity and the extent that it goes to in this track. You wouldn't necessarily be able to play that live the same way. And so they kind of take advantage of that when they're kind of creating these instrumental parts. Now, they do some of their instrumentals live. Like, they'll do Orchid live, like, right before they do Lord of this World, and they'll do Embryo right before they do Children of the Grave, and Rat Salad really came about as being something that they did live that they kind of worked into their album. But for something like Fluff, you know, this feels like something they couldn't necessarily do to its fullest capabilities, to its fullest extent, live. And
yeah, unless they had like an eight guitar ensemble kind of thing.
Yeah, and so that's just one of the great things about they make the instrumentals distinct and unique. And that's exactly what Fluff is. It's a distinct and unique part of this album, and just continues to change things up as you're going through the album and just completely redefine the tone of the album.
Yeah, and I think there's, you know, despite what I said in the video I did with you about on Sabbath Bloody Sabbath about treading that line of overproduction, there's definitely a place for songs like this that are really have a lot of layers to them, especially with each layer isn't necessarily like masking another thing or not adding anything or just there to be there. I think each layer has a purpose in the song Fluff. And despite it being like really having a lot of production to it, I still wouldn't call it overproduced. And it's also not something that they do on every track on this album. So I think that there's definitely a place for just this experimenting with high levels of production on their songs. And especially, like you were saying, the instrumental tracks too, because they don't have those lyrics to really drive the song. They can just kind of sit back and experiment with what they're doing sonically and instrumentally. Yeah. And I think that's really cool. Experimenting is always just really fun and cool to do when you're making music. And then their instrumental pieces are a really great opportunity for them to do that, I think.
Yeah. And I think especially like if you look at Volume 4, like you look at FX, and you look at Laguna Sunrise, they have a lot of experimentation with that album. And so it's great to kind of see that kind of carry over into their next one.
Definitely.
Yeah. So those are all my thoughts on Fluff. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Nope.
So that about does it for the instrumental Fluff, the third track on the album Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Once again, I'm Nathaniel Molnar. Thank you so much for watching, and I'd like to thank Johnny Gifford for joining me. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much.
So we are going to be diving into, next video, we're going to be diving into the fourth track on this album, which is Sabra Cadabra, which is a really fun song. There's a lot going on in that song, so I'm very excited to talk about it. So until we discuss Sabra Cadabra, thank you so much for watching, and I would like to point out, which I try to say every video, but I almost forgot to say, I want to know what you guys think of Fluff. Do you agree with us on all the points that we were saying about Fluff, or do you have points of disagreement? Do you think Fluff is just kind of one of those tracks where you're like, yeah, you know, I like it, it sounds nice, but I don't really listen to it very often because I just want to get to the next part of the album. I just want to get back to kind of like the heavier parts of Sabbath. Or do you really appreciate something like Fluff more because it is so starkly different and it is so much more of like a beautifully composed piece of music? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. So we will be discussing Sabra Cadabra next, so until then, thank you for watching.